And he grabbed me like by the scruff, and he went, "Reynolds, take the fucking stage. Take it." And I said, "Danny, I'm peeing right now." Thank you. Wow.
What did it feel like to share the world premiere of this film with an audience here in Toronto, especially in John Candy's hometown?
Well, I mean, you never make a movie to hit a release date unless you're a studio, a financier, or a producer. But we had always kind of reverse engineered this to hopefully premiere at TIFF. Being the opening night film is an honor we don't take for granted. That was not something that we were expecting in any way, shape, or form. But there is no other place. I mean, you just can't. This is not a Telluride or a Lake Tahoe National Film Festival movie. This is a Toronto International Film Festival film. So, yeah, I think John would have, if he were here, he would have loved the fact that last night we were all sitting together in a movie theater, and we were in Toronto, and his two kids and his wife were sitting in that audience, and in some ways it was bittersweet because it felt like we were saying goodbye in a way, but we were also opening what might be the last John Candy movie to ever open.
Yes. Yeah. Bittersweet. And I think, that speaks quite a bit about John Candy's performances, I think, throughout his career. When you were growing up in Vancouver in the 80s, John Candy was at the height of his fame. So, SCTV, of course, but such incredible films like National Lampoon's Vacation, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Uncle Buck, icons, of course.
Yeah.
What are your memories of watching these films and his performances?
When you watch SCTV, some of the sketches are brilliant. Like, they're actually genius. And some of them are just really just patently terrible. And that's what makes it special. That is life. You would see them experimenting and playing and really kind of enjoying the lack of perfection. And you juxtapose that to now, and I see this all the time. I'm right now teaching what I need to learn myself over and over and over again, but I see it with my kids, is this kind of refusal to fail or to put yourself in a position in which you may fail or suck or be bad at something, because you really cannot be good at anything unless you're willing to be bad at it. And these guys were very comfortable embracing the suck, and they did it over and over again, and they played in so many different sandboxes on those shows that they had a little bit of experience in everything. And it was so revelatory as I got older and realized, it was no longer a feeling I had, but I could intellectualize it. I was like, yes, they let themselves be bad. And when you do that, you can go be good at something. Because I remember I was on stage, and one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from Danny Jacobson, who was the creator of a show called Mad About You. It was a sitcom way back in the day. And wonderful guy. But Danny pulled me aside. I think it was the third episode we'd ever shot of Two Guys and a Girl. And he noticed I'd throttle it, like I'd pull back in front of the live audience. And it was because I was trying to give my co-stars space, like to shine, because that's what improv is. When improv comedy is like, you're inviting the other person in. You're not trying to win or beat them or be the star. You're trying to make us all good. And I kept sort of making room for that. And you can't really do that on a sitcom. You have to take the stage. And that's what Danny said. He pulled me aside, and he grabbed me like by the scruff, and he went, "Reynolds, take the fucking stage. Take it." And I said, "Danny, I'm peeing right now." You frighten me. You're large, and you're powerful. And he said, "You take it. And if you take the stage, you will help that person, you will help that person, and everyone will get better." And he was right. I went out there and I gave it my all.
Is there a secret to creating the kind of on-screen chemistry that you need with your co-leads for the success of this type of genre?
That's a great question. Chemistry is something that is either there or it's not. You can create it though. In the edit room, I don't know if there's any aspiring filmmakers in this audience anywhere. Maybe a couple. Okay. In the edit room, when you overlap dialogue, it's chemistry. It feels like chemistry. It feels like exactly like chemistry. So when you get two characters talking at the same time, we can still hear what they're saying, but it sounds like they're comfortable with each other. So it's a beautiful part of the story. Like they say the last, part of the writing process is the edit room, and that's true, it really is. So when you get characters overlapping, that'll create chemistry. But if you just have that natural chemistry, God, it's beautiful. It is just a wonderful thing. So Sandra Bullock had been a friend of mine for over a decade before we even shot The Proposal. One of my greatest memories I have is dancing in a nightclub all night with Sandra and George Michael. Like, all night. And I go to bed at 8:30 p.m. Mostly. It was just like unbelievable. And we had so much fun on that movie, and you can feel it. You can sometimes feel it when people are really enjoying each other on screen. Chemistry can override even shitty writing. Like, it's a great thing when you have it. When you sort of fast forward just a little bit to, I don't know, for me, it was around 2014. At this point, I'm a little bit, how do I put it? I'm in actor jail. Not getting a lot of work. I've had some big sort of highly publicized bombs, and that's where you kind of go, well, hold on a second. Now, I have no authorship in that. If I'm going to fail, I'd rather be the architect of my own demise than, and if I'm going to succeed, I would want to be the architect of that win, So I started to think about it a little bit differently then and take a lot more authorship over the situation. And that really changed my entire life. But I wouldn't have been able to do that had I not worked with people like Sandra, worked with, incredible actors like Rachel Weisz and, just watching these people who have spent their lifetime perfecting a craft while I've spent most of my life dicking around. So you're really like watching these people and studying and trying to learn and also allowing yourself to fail and allowing yourself to, it's that thing. I always trust people. 'Cause I work in multiple industries now, and I trust people so much more when they say, I don't know. Like, if somebody's like, hey, you just said a word that I don't know. What does that word mean? And, and I do that too, because it's how we learn. But that's a trusting thing to do. And I think that that's very important.
Very close to The Proposal, I want to talk about a film that screened here at TIFF in 2010. It was also the first time you might have been at the festival in a lead role, possibly. Yep. The film we're talking about is called Buried, and we actually have a picture of you with director Rodrigo Cortez and screenwriter Chris Sparling from the TIFF Portrait Studio. So we're just going to show this photo right here.
God almighty, look at that fucking guy. So I look like I went to college. Rodrigo, wonderful director, and Chris Sparling, it's a totally... oh, you're just writing everything I'm fucking saying. Wow. Touché. Touché. I wonder if that bouillabaisse is ready. I don't know. I do not read. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna stop that. I am so sorry. That was, that was superfluous. I'm incorrigible, and the word supercalifragilisticexpialidocious keeps running through my head. Buried was a film I did. It was an isolation film, sort of in the spirit of Rope or Lifeboat. Hitchcock kind of did these movies that seemed seemingly impossible, and I'm the only person in the whole movie, you know, and that was a scary, terrifying kind of experience. And the movie was, I would say that that's a movie that I did that was good. It was really good, and I feel weird saying that, but it was a really good movie. I'm really proud of it, and the whole thing takes place in a coffin, basically. You know, the guy wakes up, he's a contractor, he's in Afghanistan, he's an American contractor, wakes up in a box, has no idea how he got there. All he has is a phone and a lighter, and he's running out of time, and he's panicking. And the whole movie is just in the box. So it's a technical challenge, obviously, for a cinematographer. Edu Grau was the cinematographer's name. He works, some of you, oh yeah, you know who he is? Works with Tom Ford a lot. He's done, you know, Single Man, I think is the movie. He's wonderful. Like, what he did there was incredible. And just, you know, that's it. You just have a one person, and this is what I think filmmaking is all about, like taking a swing like that. 16 days of shooting. I remember Rodrigo said, let's rehearse for 5 or 6 days. And I said, go fuck yourself. I'm not rehearsing that. Just fucking roll the camera, dude. And it's gonna get nuts. And, cause you can't rehearse that. You just gotta believe it. And if I believe it, you'll believe it. And we go. And that's what we did. And I still to this day do not know why we shot it in Barcelona. But we did. I was like, this could have been shot in my living room. You know, would have been happy to host. But yeah, we shot it in Barcelona, Spain, and it was a movie I just loved. Deadpool came along after that. I had shot test footage for it a couple of years before, and the studio, you know, just really didn't want to do anything with it. It was an R-rated comic book movie, which is just, you just don't do those anyway. Blade was one they did in '98 with Stephen Norrington. It was great, it's an amazing movie, but they never really did them again, and at least not at scale. And Deadpool's a fringe character. People didn't really know who he was, and I loved it. I was obsessed with it because I loved that he knew he was in a comic book movie. It was kind of meta, it was kind of new, but the test footage existed, and it really was a case study in how this could work. And they just wouldn't do anything with it. So then some asshole leaks it online, and I'm like, you know, looking at the guy in the mirror brushing my teeth, and I'm like, dude, what have you done? This could be punishable by law. But the internet forced the studio to say, well, we're gonna make this movie. And I was, you know, 24 hours later, that movie had a green light. And yes, I cheated a little. But I think I was onto something that people would be interested in. And I'm grateful that I kind of listened to that instinct, and I'm grateful that I did the wrong thing in that moment. So, you know, really what I internalized on Green Lantern, why I say it was one of the best things I ever did, is that, you know, too much time and too much money will destroy creativity. It will ruin it. Constraint and pressure will create asymmetric thought, and you will start to think outside the box. There are sequences that, you know, I produced the movie, but I also wrote it with Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, who are friends of mine, who are brilliant. We cracked the story in our first meeting. And it basically, I'm using the character. I'm not a comic book nerd the way some people might think I am. I'm really not. I use the character, and this is the perfect character to use. The first one I use for shame, to tell a story about shame. Second one about family, and the third one is about redemption. Deadpool can only behave that way because he's ashamed of himself. That's his maladaptive coping mechanism, is humor. It's mine. It was John Candy's to a certain degree, as far as I can tell. John Candy being self-effacing, but not self-loathing, which is something I've always loved about him, and something that I try to push on myself a little bit more, because I can be self-loathing in instances. But you know, so they're kind of built upon that premise, and this character is kind of, you know, this movie is just a movie about shame. I mean, this is a guy who just loses his mind with shame. He finally found love and everything that he ever wanted, and he put him in this self-imposed prison where his skin is all burned and all gross, and that's why he wears a mask. And It's not to hide his identity. It's really to hide his shame. And I really wanted to make sure that came across. And even Hugh Jackman, it was, you always in movies you always have to have a why. And so many big studios, they make movies for what I said there, that joke, 18 to 49-year-olds, or they're aiming for some kind of demographic, and really what they're doing is they're basically aiming for your wallet, and they're trying to drag you down toward the bottom line by that wallet, and that's it. And you don't make fun stuff that way. You don't make stuff that resonates that way. You make it when you make it for yourself.
Collective effervescence was what we witnessed, for sure, last night at the premiere of John Candy, I Like Me. You talk a little bit about how did this project start, and can you tell us about your collaboration with Colin Hanks, the director?
Yeah, it started with years ago. I think about 7 years ago, we made a little video, a 2.5-minute video. I think on John's birthday. It was just set to Dream Academy, the song from Planes, Trains. Really beautiful, and it was a little bit of a retrospective. Just hit some of John's some of his big moments, and that thing got, I don't know how many bajillion people loved it, and shared it, and I remember thinking, wow, people miss this guy like we miss this guy. And that was the moment we thought, well, let's do a documentary about it. And you could make it a documentary about me trying to get Bill Murray to sit the fuck down and talk about John Candy. Same with Dan Aykroyd. We just couldn't get, Bill notoriously uses a fax machine, which obviously he doesn't use a fax machine anymore because you don't. Who the hell, his agent, I would love to go in that room and see a fax machine. And then I'm on my way to an event in New York in a tuxedo, about to step out of the car. And I hate going to events. I get very anxious. I have a lot of anxiety. And the phone rings, and it says, Bill Murray. And I pick it up. Hello? Yeah, hey, Ryan, who would you say is the godfather of the spit take? I'm sorry, what now? Godfather, spit take. I don't know, Bill. I don't know, I'd say maybe Desi Arnaz. Didn't he do it? And everyone was sort of horrified or something? There's some sort of story there. No, that's wrong. It's Danny Thomas. And I realized, I just fucking failed the test. I just failed this, so I scrambled. I went, well, look, Desi might have done it first. Think of basketball. You like basketball, I think, right? Robert Naismith, I think it's Robert Naismith. Naismith was the last name. He invented basketball. He's Canadian. He did not perfect basketball. You did. America did. Danny Thomas. Danny Thomas is basketball. He perfected the spit take. So come on, man, just do the interview. and he was, I'll think about it, And then he ghosted me forever. And I kept going, God. And then finally my son, I'm making a video where I say in the video, because you're desperate when you're making a video for someone. I'm like, hey, Bill, it's Ryan again. Look, I'm running out of time, existentially and of course, literally, because death will find me. And I need you to do this interview. Please, you lived with John for 2 years. You knew him better than anybody. I just really want to hear what you have to say about him. And then my son, it's 11:30 at night, just steps into frame like a fucking horror movie. What the hell is he doing up? His little Spider-Man Jingle Bells mixed messaging shirt, and he goes, I'm awake. And I go, yes, you are. I'm talking to Bill. And then I look at him and I go, tell Bill to do the interview. And he looks right down the lens and he goes, do the interview, Bill. And I said, Bill, if you can say no to a child like that, you're a monster. And I turned it off. Next thing I know, he was sitting down for the interview. And I felt very lucky about that. Yeah. One of the things about John that I think of, sorry, I'm a mess, and I have to look away from that thing, is, John was a people pleaser, and he was struggling with, some mental health issues, I'm not trying to say, the dog whistle of mental, but everybody deals with mental health issues. I mean, everybody has, we're all carrying little bags of rocks around. And John was, it was during a time when you're right at the cusp of when you could just maybe start talking about it a little bit, But he was also a people pleaser, and these two things are antithetical to each other. When you're a people pleaser and you're having mental health issues, that's a big, big problem, because as a people pleaser, you don't want to burden anybody with your problems. You don't want to burden anybody with anything. You want to make them happy. And when you're dealing with mental health issues, the only way is through. You have to talk about it. You have to take the step forward. You have to make a moment or a minute or an hour or a day or a month or a year about you. And that, to me, is a tragedy here, because I don't know that that was possible for him, at the time. And I think about his kids and what they lost, and that they spent their lives, kind of putting together this jigsaw puzzle of memories and public perception. And, imagine losing your dad, but everybody knows him or thinks they know him, and it's just heartbreaking, because 43, fuck, man, my frontal lobe was still developing at 43, and I just think it's such a tragedy. Mel Brooks calls it it was a sin to take him away from us like that.